we chose the story because we felt that it lent itself to the stylistic interpretation we wanted to do. We absolutely didn't do it to try to look interesting or cool. We did it because what we were trying to do was find a way of telling a story from a first-person point of view.
For us, it's really important that we look at the opportunities that different methods of distribution will occur. We did a live stream of it on YouTube when we did a live premiere, but that was a one-off. It didn't stay on YouTube. It was a once kind of, did you see it? So that kind of thing really helps to build a sort of the other way of doing something. We've made an unconventional film using new technologies, and it would be odd if we didn't recognise the technologies and harness the opportunities now of the world that we live in.
There's definitely a sense that we wanted to make the whole look of the film feel quite dark and quite kind of paranoid. I think there's a time when you're a teenager, when you're kind of in between being able to talk to your parents about your problems and in between having the kind of friends that you can talk openly about your issues. So there's a kind of maybe 2 or 3 years where you're quite alone, potentially. And so we wanted to use the visual language to try to create this sense of loneliness and darkness and kind of almost myopia. But then at the same time, we use these very intense colours, just because they're kind of symbolic of the blood, of the roses, of the kind of the big emotional moments.
One of the difficult things at first was not in terms of the character, but in just terms of the performing on green screen. It was a new experience for me. I'd never done it before, and it's quite an odd experience because you're essentially just stood in front of a green wall, and you have to act out these scenes and sort of pretend that you're in an environment that you don't belong in. So, in the toilet or on the playground, and essentially you're not in that environment. You stood in front of a green wall. So it's difficult because you can't interact with your environment. But then after a while, it became like almost better because you can just focus on the relationship between you and the other actor, and it's just about how you're acting with your scene partner. Before we shot every scene, we had the green screen room, and then we had a rehearsal room immediately next door. And before we did every scene, Marcus Roma, the director, took us into the rehearsal room, and he'd run the scene in a quiet environment, no cameras, no green screen, just a rehearsal room, and you and your scene partner and the director. And he'd talk about just concentrating on what's important.
I think the key is we started with a book, which was in the first person by Anthony McGowan. So there was a story that we knew we were telling from the outset, but because of the nature of how we were filming it, we didn't know ultimately whether it was going to work or not. So that was the biggest risk. We had no idea at the start whether it was going to work. We had great belief that it would work, but we had no idea what the ultimate result, which I think is quite spectacular, would be.
One of the processes was what we call a pre-visualization. So before we started filming, we broke down the script into a kind of animated storyboard where we were using some of the technology that we used in the post-production to give us an idea about the way we might construct images and the way they may be put together. So we had a template for the shoot that meant when we got to the shoot, we were kind of scheduling shots throughout the day. There would be, a list. It wasn't, right, we're doing scene 24 today. We'd be going, we're just doing a shot from scene 24, and it's Paul, and it's a close-up, and it's being used, or we think it's going to be used in this way.